NFL teams say they want dogs, quarterbacks with edge, competitors, leaders who refuse to play nice, until one bites back. And Diego Pavia bit back harder than anyone expected. Because when a quarterback stops just competing and starts pushing back, when he doesn't just lead the room but challenges the people running it, and when winning games turns into embarrassing institutions, the conversation changes. Suddenly, it's not about toughness anymore. It's about control. And that's exactly the problem the NFL has with Diego Pavia. Diego Pavia isn't controversial because he can't play. He's controversial because he refuses to fit. He's undersized. He's emotional. He's confrontational. And everywhere he's gone, teams have won more games than they're supposed to, which forces the NFL into a problem it hates solving. Can a league built on templates handle a quarterback who doesn't follow one? Is Diego Pavia too volatile to trust? Or is he exactly the kind of competitor teams claim they're looking for when nobody's watching? To answer that, you can't start with the draft. You have to start with how a zero-star quarterback from Albuquerque ended up beating Alabama, suing the NCAA, and forcing the NFL to decide whether edge is a liability or the whole point. And this isn't a theory. It's not a draft hot take. It's not a personality debate built off headlines. The NFL didn't wake up confused about Diego Pavia by accident. This discomfort was earned. It was built over years through places nobody was watching, against competition nobody respected, and under pressure most quarterbacks never face. To understand why NFL teams don't know what to do with him, you have to understand where he came from. Because quarterbacks like Diego Pavia aren't developed in 7-on-7 camps. They're forged in environments that don't care if you succeed. Albuquerque, New Mexico doesn't produce quarterbacks. It definitely doesn't produce Heisman finalists. Diego Pavia was born there in 2002, grew up there, played 3 sports at Volcano Vista High School: football, baseball, wrestling. His senior year, he led the Hawks to an 11-0 regular season before losing in the Class 6A semifinals. He threw for 1,485 yards and 14 touchdowns, ran for 464 more, and 9 scores. 24/7 Sports ranked him as a 0-star recruit. Not a 2-star who got overlooked. Not a 3-star who transferred. 0 stars. As in, the recruiting services didn't even bother giving him a number. So he did what 0-star quarterbacks from Albuquerque do when nobody wants them. He went to New Mexico Military Institute. NMMI isn't just junior college. It's a military junior college. Reveille at dawn, marching drills, structure that doesn't care if you can throw a football. In 2020, as a freshman, he was working his way into a starting role. In 2021, he led them to an NJCAA national championship. 1,728 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 1 interception, 658 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns. He didn't just manage the offense, he carried it. But even with a national title, the offers weren't flooding in. New Mexico State took him. The same New Mexico State that had exactly one 10-win season since 1960. Yeah, that New Mexico State. In 2022, his first year at FBS, he was fine, serviceable, promising, forgettable. Then 2023 happened. Nearly 3,000 passing yards, over 900 on the ground. New Mexico State won 10 games, something the program hadn't done since 1960. He won Conference USA Offensive Player of the Year. And suddenly, people were asking who the hell Diego Pavia was. But there was a problem. NFL scouts don't fall in love with guys who dominate Conference USA. They fall in love with guys who dominate the SEC. So in January 2024, Diego Pavia transferred to Vanderbilt, which meant NFL evaluators now had to watch him against real competition. And that's when the organizational discomfort started. Vanderbilt is historically one of the worst football programs in the Power 5. They lose to everyone. They especially lose to Alabama. October 5th, 2024. Vanderbilt hosts #1 Alabama. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gives Vanderbilt a chance. Pavia goes 16 of 20 for 252 yards and 2 touchdowns. He adds 56 rushing yards. Vanderbilt wins. Vanderbilt's first ever win over a top 5 opponent. Students storm the field, the goalposts come down, and Diego Pavia, the zero-star JUCO kid from Albuquerque, just told the sport's most controlled dynasty, not tonight. His 2024 season ends with 2,293 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 800 rushing yards, and 8 rushing touchdowns. Good numbers, not great. But the Alabama win created a problem for draft boards, because now he wasn't just a Conference USA outlier. He was a data point NFL teams couldn't ignore, and they didn't have a template for him. In 2025, the NCAA decided Diego Pavia wasn't eligible to play. Their reasoning? His 2 years at NMMI counted against his total eligibility clock under their junior college transfer rules, which meant his college career was over. No goodbye tour, no senior season, no chance to prove the Alabama game wasn't a fluke. Most players would have accepted it, called it unfair, moved on. Diego Pavia sued the NCAA in federal court. His argument wasn't complicated. In the NIL era, restricting his eligibility meant restricting his ability to earn. Court projections estimated he stood to make over $1 million in NIL money if he could play in 2025. The NCAA's rule wasn't about amateurism anymore. It was about restraining his economic opportunity. That's an antitrust violation. December 18th, 2024. The federal judge granted a preliminary injunction. The NCAA could not enforce its junior college eligibility bylaw against Diego Pavia. He could play the 2025 season, and Vanderbilt wouldn't face penalties for letting him. The courthouse doors opened, and Diego Pavia walked back onto the football field the NCAA tried to take away from him, which meant NFL teams now had to evaluate a quarterback who'd just proven he was willing to fight institutions bigger than any franchise. That's not a football trait. That's a personality marker. His 2025 season wasn't just good. It was historic. 3,539 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 70.6% completion percentage, 862 rushing yards, 10 rushing touchdowns, 9.4 yards per attempt, 87.3 QBR, 4th in the entire country. Vanderbilt went 10-2 in the regular season, 10 wins at Vanderbilt in the SEC, with a quarterback who sued his way back onto the field. Diego Pavia was invited to the Heisman ceremony in New York. He sat in that theater with the other finalists, shorter than most of them, dressed in a sharp suit, knowing he didn't belong there 4 years ago. Another player's name got called. He clapped, he smiled, he posed for pictures, and then later that night, he posted a photo with his offensive lineman on Instagram. The caption, "F all the voters, but family for life," with a thumbs down emoji. The backlash was immediate. Heisman voters ripped him publicly. National columnists called him disrespectful, immature, entitled. The narrative flipped overnight from, "We love his fire," to, "Does this guy understand what it means to be the face of a franchise?" 24 hours later, he issued a public apology on X. He called it a mistake, said he didn't handle his emotions well, emphasized his love and respect for the voters and the selection process. But something shifted. The Heisman night wasn't just a public relations mistake. It was the moment Pavia lost control of how NFL decision-makers saw him. The Instagram story gave scouts permission to project worst-case locker room scenarios. It gave coaches permission to worry about leadership optics. It gave executives permission to ask if the volatility was worth the risk, and Pavia paid for it. Not in stats, he finished with over 13,000 total yards and nearly 120 touchdowns across his FBS career, including an 87.3 QBR in 2025. But in how the league started framing him, family-related incidents around games began drawing attention. When asked about it, Pavia described Albuquerque as like a real-life Grand Theft Auto. The comment got media play, more ammunition, more questions. And then at the Senior Bowl, he measured under 6 feet tall. Vanderbilt had listed him at 6 feet even, 207 pounds. The tape said he played bigger. The measurements said otherwise. Every new piece of information reinforced the same organizational concern. This player doesn't fit the checklist. Because the NFL's evaluation infrastructure is built for comparables, draft boards rely on templates, prototypes, players who map cleanly onto existing archetypes. Diego Pavia doesn't map cleanly onto anything. He's under 6 feet, but ran 630 times in college, more than most running backs. He sued the NCAA and won, which means evaluators have to account for institutional confrontation. He posted F all the voters on Instagram, which means coaches have to project media management. He led a 10-win season at Vanderbilt, which means the production is undeniable. Unique profiles create friction, and friction creates conservative decision-making, even when the talent is obvious. Think about how fast a draft room has to move. Now imagine explaining Diego Pavia in 30 seconds. The NFL compresses long-term judgments into short windows. Interviews at the combine, visits in April, background checks run by people who've never met him. Nuance gets flattened. Complexity becomes risk. A player who requires context, who requires someone to actually understand what drives him, stresses out a league built for speed, not understanding. Inside organizations, risk is distributed unevenly. Scouts carry reputational exposure if they champion a guy who flames out. Coaches absorb locker room consequences if a personality doesn't fit. Executives absorb blame if things go public. So even correct decisions get discouraged if they create internal friction. And Diego Pavia creates internal friction just by existing. Emotional visibility is easier to critique than quiet dysfunction. A guy who yells on the sideline gets labeled unstable. A guy who stays calm and underperforms gets labeled a professional. Control is inferred, not demonstrated, and visibility becomes shorthand for risk. The NFL struggles to separate expression from disruption. They see the Instagram story. They don't see the 87.3 QBR. Or they see both and assume one predicts the other. Pre-draft labels harden quickly. Undersized, volatile, character concern. Teams account for optics even when they deny it. Perception becomes part of projection. Handling Diego Pavia includes managing the reaction to drafting him, not just his performance. But here's what NFL locker rooms already know. Veterans respond to accountability when it's backed by performance. Strong personalities are accepted when they're aligned with winning. The league fears issues the locker room wouldn't even notice, because what teams want in theory differs from what wins games. Quarterbacks have to be assertive, improvise, confront. Evaluation rewards calm projection. The game rewards reactive intensity. Edge is risky to select. It's also costly to lack. The NFL can barely handle Diego Pavia, not because he's unmanageable, but because their process isn't built for him. The second question is harder. He went from 0 stars to a Heisman ceremony. He sued the NCAA and won. He took over 3 programs, NMMI, New Mexico State, Vanderbilt, and made all of them better. When the NCAA tried to end his career, he didn't accept it. He fought. And then he put up the best statistical season of his life. He's directive, not diplomatic. He demands. He confronts. He doesn't manage feelings. But demanding works when you back it up. And Diego Pavia has backed it up everywhere he's been. NMMMI coaches watched him lower his shoulder into linebackers as a quarterback. New Mexico State watched him drag a program to 10 wins. Vanderbilt watched him beat Alabama and then sue the NCAA. His edge isn't situational, it's structural. NFL locker rooms have seen worse. They've tolerated worse. Strong personalities get accepted when they're aligned with winning, and Diego Pavia wins. The media killed him for the Instagram story, but NFL teams are still evaluating him, still bringing him in, still asking if he can play, because privately they know what publicly they can't say. Edge matters, competitiveness matters, and the gap between draft room fear and locker room reality is wider than anyone admits. Diego Pavia is exactly the kind of competitor teams say they want. He's volatile because competition is volatile. He's confrontational because competition requires confrontation. He's emotional because he refuses to fake control he doesn't feel. And that terrifies NFL decision makers who've been trained to mistake calm for competence. So where does he go in the draft? Late day 3, round 6 or 7, maybe undrafted. Not because he can't play, because the NFL can't handle the decision. They'll draft guys with bigger frames and smaller resumes. They'll take quarterbacks who've done less with more. And some team will get Diego Pavia in the 7th round or as an undrafted free agent and realize they just got a starting caliber competitor for free. Because the production is real, the toughness is real, the winning is real. The league will project risk until someone projects utility. And when one general manager is willing to bet on all of that and can handle a quarterback who refuses to play small for anybody, they're going to end up with the steal of the draft. Diego Pavia already beat a bigger opponent than any team he'll face. He didn't just beat Alabama, he beat the NCAA in court. The question was never whether Diego Pavia can make it in the NFL. The question is whether the NFL is built to recognize what he already is. For more of the best NFL content, be sure to like and subscribe. Also, check out some of our other videos on the screen now.